Okay. I think we're live. It's another Sunday. It's another Sunday. For everybody who's tuning in, welcome to another episode of the Shaker Heights, where experiences may vary. I'm your co-host, Class 84, Gabe Tolliver.
Eric Green, class of 1984.
And today...
1984 within two, man. Part of the crew.
And today we have one of our fellow esteemed classmates and musicians extraordinaire. Got life behind words. We have class of 84, Jon Denney. And we got his name spelled right. Finally, today.
After 3 or 4 attempts that you didn't even see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem, brother.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us on a Sunday. And yeah. All right. Man, it's a blessing. Eric, set it off.
So, I don't know if I haven't told John this, but he's one of my inspirations for actually indulging into this show. Laura, what's Laura's last name? The author. Oh my God. Dream City Shaker, about the Shaker being the North Star of integration.
Meckler. Dreamtown.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Laura. Hope you
still
get back
Sunday.
to us. So anyway, one of the greatest things about going to Shaker was the cultural exchange. And after seeing this man at Byron Junior High School, I think circa, was it 81, 79, 80, 81? I'm not sure what year it was. But he took the stage with a band called Attic. And that has changed my musical tastes from here on out. And after that day, and after hearing Boston's song, More Than a Feeling, I immediately joined the Columbia Records and Tapes Club. 14 albums, 14 cassettes for 11 cents. And
that was a deal.
Right here, this man is about 80% responsible for that happening.
See? The power of music.
And I apologize, bro.
Oh, man. So, John, okay, Shaker, where did you go to elementary school? What area did you live in, the whole nine?
I grew up on Delford Road. Went to Fernway Elementary. And then we did a move over to the other side of Shaker around Dryden Road. In sixth grade, I went to Mercer. And then from Mercer, went through Byron to Shaker. That was kind of my journey there.
Yeah. So when did you know that you wanted to be a musician? I mean, did it start at an early age? Were you taking, piano classes or?
Yeah, we were doing, I was doing drums. Taking drum lessons and practice pads. I got a snare drum, to work out the rudiments. I played the snare drum in the little school bands for a spell. And all the while I'm taking piano lessons as well. And I played drums, I played piano, but drums were more fun to me.
Yeah.
And I think where that turned was, and I do these little talent shows on the piano. Then when I got into Mercer, in another grad, 84, I met this, turned out to be a great friend, Danny Glick, who was a graduate of 84. He was he had a little skinny little cat. He had this beautiful pearl drum set, and he beat the shit out of it. I said, well, I'm never playing drums again. Yeah, I mean, he blew me away.
Yeah.
And so I kind of put the drumsticks down and noodled on the piano. And from that time, when I got into Byron, I met Tim Elliott.
Yes.
And we met in the lunch. Rest in peace, Tim. He passed away
Yes.
recently. We met in the lunchroom, and he told me about this little band I was in, and he said, "You know, would I like to come and jam?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm not playing drums." You know what I mean? So I got a little Univox keyboard that had 4 settings on it, and I learned Toto, I think, Hold the Line or something that Attic played all the time. And at that time, being 7th, 8th grade, and Byron being able to hit that little riff, it was pretty impressive. And then to kind of team up with 4 other musicians, we ground through that jam. So wow, this feels fun. This feels good.
Yeah.
And then started learning more cover tunes. More Than Feeling was one of them that we performed at that talent show in junior high that you said there. And that's when I knew. I think that's what that's all I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I enjoyed was geometry and math. That was another fun thing. But once I started playing songs and chords and playing with other people, music, that was just kind of another connection.
Yeah.
I felt like I was part of something bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, that was very important to embrace. As a 12, 13-year-old, you got to connect with something and someone in order to survive. So that was kind of my mechanism. And the more I did it, the more I wanted to do. And the more I did, the more I got to do. It was just kind of cyclic. It snowballed. It just consistently.
Yeah. Well,
that more channel. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, the fact that you mentioned geometry, like that would make sense, in to me at least, with what you're doing, that type of math, because I definitely see like a connection with music and math, So, yeah. that's interesting there.
It's like math turned out to be, because I was able to understand it from the basics. That it just was fun to me because it was like a puzzle with numbers.
Yeah.
Music was the same thing, which was audio pieces as pieces of a puzzle to make them fit together, or collaboration between musicians as being part of a bigger picture or a discovery process that I still strive, to recapture that feeling. That's why I have all these little synths and trick boxes and things, because that it's meditative for me. It always has been.
Didn't Thelonious Monk use math to compose, write compositions? You familiar with that? That brings
that
to
cat. Yeah, I'm familiar with him. He's a little. I'm more of a Bill Evans, compared to Thelonious Monk.
That's
Thelonious
calculus
Monk,
right there.
Man, that's a language that I listen. God bless Thelonious, but it's like I don't get this. It's just there's some things he hits, some dissonance. It's all natural. I don't think any of it had to do with math. I think it all had to do with gifts. Same with Bill Evans, which is a lot more digestible.
Yeah.
The different playing styles. And with jazz, there's so many, but the Bill Evans I just love. It's gorgeous the way he took simple things and made them and put them together and made it sound so beautiful.
I love Sketches in Spain that he did with Miles. Yeah. I mean, that's still like in my general CD pile of like 26, CDs and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
I love his work he did with Miles Davis is one of my favorite.
Yeah, man.
So what on it.
Well, continuing on with your playing. So this group was what, Attic you were in?
Yeah, it was
Haven.
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
Oh, well, Haven came later. Attic was put together. Started with Matt Kirsch, Eric Rosenthal, and they combined first names, Matt, Eric, Attic.
Yeah.
So It's their band. But,
that's a good shaker factoid for Jeopardy.
Yeah. Right. So
another career move for Gabe, you know, shaker trivia.
Yeah.
Right. So that, you know, I remember Tim brought me over to a rehearsal, the first one, and Matt sat me, and rehearsals were done at Eric's house in Shaker. And Matt just sat me at the piano that was there and says, play me something. And I was so nervous, you know, Tim was going, yeah, show what you got, John. And I didn't have much. I didn't have much. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And I played, it was the Come Together by the Beatles. And I played the bass line, the little chords, and they were getting into it. All right. And so
how many instruments do you play, or did you play back then? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It was just drums and piano at inception. But at that grand piano, because I learned it from sheet music, I played the melody in the right hand. The words came up, and everybody just busted up laughing. They were like, "No, John, slow down. No, you don't want to play that again. You don't want to hear that again. Just play." Yeah. We went upstairs, listened to the record, and he goes, "Those are your parts. You know the changes. You know the chords."
Yeah.
We went downstairs and rocked that shit, and then it was like, yeah. Matt had a very expensive taste in music, and that's where I learned about Boston. Reeling in the years was, you know, he started filling me up with all these kind of pop and classic records from back in the day. We learned what we could. Most of them were pretty challenging, you know. So it put me to the task, and I got comfortable with that. And then at that point, you know, we started doing some shows, local parties, dances, and there was just kind of some feedback that started to come in, and then all the girls started paying me some mind.
Yeah, musicians and women.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I'm sold. You know, so I dove in, ignored the rest, and that went on through high school, where it was just me kind of getting by in the academics and me really focusing in on music. And part of the discovery process was the theory of it. So I took multiple performance lessons, but also strictly theory lessons, jazz theory lessons, and started going to the different music schools in Milwaukee, Cleveland Institute of Music, anywhere I could get my hands on something that I didn't understand, had a feeling about it, and just don't. So I was lost, man. You know, I was gone. You couldn't get me. You know, I was like, I could deal with a C and a D. It's not that I don't think I was capable. I just didn't fucking care.
Yeah. It was about the music.
It was, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And this is going back at that.
Wow.
So how long, let me ask you this. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I've got questions.
No, go ahead.
So how long, what were the expectations of the band Attic? And when you were with Attic, how far did you go along with Attic? Did Attic go on with you or without you, or, you know, how long did it last?
Well, there was kind of a turning point at that. Because a lot of those early days were real fuzzy because I got involved in drugs as a kid. Thinking again, that was part of the caveat of being a musician. And you know, 12, 13, 14 years old, you know. So we carried this band into high school where my abuse of drugs became a scary element where it terrified my parents, and they got me help. They put brakes on everything. and sent me to the Glen Bay Adolescent Recovery Center for Kids. It
Yeah, I
came
remember
out of
hearing
that
about Glen
with
Bay.
instructions, with instructions that everybody I knew that I was getting in trouble with the drugs were off limits. And
Yeah.
it was an uncomfortable feeling because Tim was my best friend, Tim Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really go far down that rabbit hole, you know, with me, but he was there for me while I was there, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I showed up to rehearsal one day and I just said, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, I'm going to go. So Tim walked out with me and we started jamming with he was a monster. David Richmond, I think his name was.
Yeah, Dave Richmond.
Yeah.
Yes.
Drummer. Yeah.
Yes.
God,
Yes.
I mean, he was
That's
somebody.
Gonzo. Yeah.
Man, that cat.
Yeah.
Like Danny, like Glick did to me earlier. This was like this kid just floored me with what he was doing with drums, and he had I heard his talent. Brutal, just brutal, and he was such a fun kind of nonchalant, just goofy kid. It's like I understand this, So me and Tim started jamming with him, and then Haven approached me while I was in that transition stage, which was Todd Lane, Don Mixon, help me out. We called him
Eric. Was it Eric Smith?
No. Eric Smith was the bass player.
The bass player.
Daryl Swan. Yeah.
Yeah, Daryl Swan. Yes.
Daryl.
Yes.
Yeah. They were.
Yeah.
And I looked at Todd Lane as just a straight rock star.
Yeah, he had that. Yeah, he had that written.
He had that vibe. His dad was in radio. We'd go in his basement. It was soundproof. There was gear wall to wall.
Wow.
And Haven was actually Addict's kind of competition. You know what I mean? So
battle of the bands.
We squared. You battle of the bands all the time. And then I sunk into their set list, and I got in trouble my own way with them. But it was a sober, so it was a different experience. And that switch of friends between the people I got high with to the people that used to get high with the community. And God bless them all. That was a life-changing experience.
Okay.
I could go on for an hour naming all those people, but they were really to my heart for 10, 15 years to follow. Where I was just, man, I got to stay away from the program, so to speak.
Right.
And
no, because that's that stuff has been embedded in pop culture. Like drugs, sex. Drugs, rock and roll. Like they're supposed to go hand in hand. Or like if you're a writer, you're supposed to drink and have a drinking problem. Like these false mythologies and narratives have fucked up a lot of people.
Well, I'm a big fan of. Let me just tell you one thing. I listened to Questlove, the drummer for the Roots. He has a podcast, QLS, and he says if you listen to all music, the tempo of the music and the rhythm of the music is related to the drug of use at that time.
Oh,
wow. So think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Yeah, man.
This is a random factoid. Did you know that the Doors were supposed to play at Shaker? Eric found that factoid.
Man, do tell that story.
Well, I don't know how I found out about it, but I
think you're going through the Shaker Historical Society or something.
I forgot, but I don't know how I found out about it. But it's a known fact that in 1968, the Doors were supposed to play at the Shaker football field.
Russell Rupp.
and Noy, and it was sponsored by Belkin, by the way. And you can go online and search it. And the actual concert at Public Hall was recorded and captured. So that's on YouTube. But there were actually posters and flyers which I used to create a T-shirt capturing that time. But they were scheduled to play at Shaker football field, but they didn't have the capacity to hold that type of crowd. So in 1960, and maybe that's why there is a mural of "No One Gets Out Alive" with Jim Morrison in the hallway outside of Hoag's math classroom. Which I learned that John Wayne, who's a graduate, I think 83, who I attended Cleveland Institute of Art with, he did that mural. So I assume that's still there.
Yeah,
in the hallway.
I think so.
There's a lot of ties.
Yeah.
So if you want a piece of history and want to understand the moment better, go on to our website. I've got the merch. I've got the T-shirt to commemorate that. Bad type setup as well. I incorporated that.
Spoken like a true designer.
That connections. Awesome. Got me in for one. Large.
All right, coming your way. So you're at the Battle of the Bands. Are you guys doing original? I know Haven went on to tour Europe, and I've seen the album cover, and I don't think you were with the band at that time. I have a picture of it. I'll send it to you. You probably have the album. But what were the differences between the bands that you found between Attic and Haven?
Well, first off, Don Mixon, the bass player, he didn't play with a pick. He thumped or fingered his lines, and he prided himself on that.
It's like some Stanley Clark stuff.
Yeah.
Larry Graham.
Yes.
Eric Smith was a brilliant musician too. He could do both, but he preferred to play with a pick sometimes, finger sometimes.
Right.
The other thing about Haven was Todd, the drummer, Todd Lane. He would, every rehearsal, his kit was built differently. So he was trying different positions of his drums and cymbals. I think he was going for a comfortability more, a look as well. But, and that for me, because he would pull off the riff every time. Daryl Swan was always kind of a quiet character, as I remember. He still has captured so much success, I believe, in LA right now, doing a lot, still active as a successful producer. There was also Doug Klein, who had
Joe Solo.
Joe Solo, who he ended up doing all the Macy Gray records too, right?
Wow.
I heard Daryl produced those too, right? Daryl produced some of the Macy Gray stuff, from what I hear.
I think the Macy Gray, Doug or Joe Solo told me he met her in a department store as a checkout girl, and they just started chatting, and they started vibing out together before you know it. Huge.
And she's also from the Akron area too, so you have that Cleveland, Akron, Ohio connection, basically.
Stuff, sure.
Yeah.
And then I know Todd went off to LA with Haven, or a version of that, New Haven, that kind of went through transitions as well. But he lived that whole rock star lifestyle, made it out the other end of the line, still playing drums, still being awesome.
So I think other than your band. Oh, hold on, I got to cut this in. Sorry, I'm taking over. I get so excited about this music part.
Let the boy cook.
So what we spoke about in our pre-meeting were some of the other influences and some of the other musical happenings around different parts of Shaker. We were talking about Michael Chapman, and tell us about some of that experiences, like where you went on, and like some of the influences that were you privy to those influences in the high school when they were happening, or after graduation? When did you start to?
Well, during in Shaker, I remember seeing Trent Thomas and Mike Chapman, both playing keyboards, running in place in one of the gymnasiums, jamming out. And that whole kind of funk urban music was not a part of my vocabulary at that point. And that just blew me away. You know what I mean? I'm doing pop, rock pop at that time. So there was a whole nother a whole nother language that just got dropped on me at that time. And it took me back. It was another kind of moment for me.
Yeah.
Then after the whole that high school, Haven, addict thing kind of dissipated, I don't know if you went to it. I think you might. Bobby Harris Jr., who was the son of the sax player in the Daz band, invited me to, and he was from Shaker. I don't recall if he went to Shaker.
Wow. Okay.
But so we started to jam out in his basement with a couple of his friends, and that was kind of my first. Whoa, what's going on? This is not what I'm used to. So then I went into more of a study of records, the music, the history of it, so I don't look like a total asshole pretending to know what I'm doing. From there, Gerald Levert asked me to come.
Wow! Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So I told Bob, I was like, God bless you. I'm gonna go jam with Gerald and Sean. And I got in there, and that was my first kind of like feeling of leveling up, because there were there was a drummer, percussionist, 3 singers, Gerald, Mark, and Sean, bass player, 2 other keyboard players, and a guitar player. And here comes the white. So it was
Dr. Fink.
It was just like, yeah. And at that point, I felt like all my preparation, or all my experience up to that, was a preparation for this rehearsal. Because I felt, and then making the connection, like Eddie Levert Senior's upstairs, OJ's.
Legend.
Listening to that as a child, growing up as a kid, and my mind was blown. And there was a certain level of professionalism. They had a record out, the first one. They had a song on the radio called "I'm Still." That Quentin Rubin actually was the guitar player too.
Yes.
So again, it's just kind of a collection of a mass of so many talented musicians. I mean, at the time, I didn't know. You're just so unaware of the surroundings while you're in the surroundings. And you So let me go, wow.
So let me, I'm trying to understand this. So did you get to know each other in high school, or was it after high school?
Well, I joined Levert while in my senior year in high school.
Oh, okay.
Carried after graduation. And there were some moments I remember when the tour bus showed up to take us out to Baltimore, someplace to play that weekend. And I 17, 18 years old, I just got a sense like, wow, I've made it.
Ballin'.
And I thought, wow, how quick did that happen? Then I kind of got, kind of kept my mouth shut, my ears and eyes open, played my part, and just watched all this magic shit just go flying by. And at that time, who knew? And then they got their first #1 hit, was "Pop, Pop, Pop Goes My Mind."
Yes.
And,
I remember that one.
Casanova. And Eddie Levert Senior, he would come in and we'd play these huge venues, big ones, and opening up for these monster artists, It was that kind of experience. I thought, man, I can't let this happen. We'll just keep going. And
yeah, wow.
And the tours were one-offs, weekends, sometimes a few weeks at a time. And then on the downtime, I made donuts and worked in Chuck's Breakfast and Lunch, over on behind Shaker Square.
So did you? So you ended up. So you ended up going to UC Berkeley, right? What was the?
I went to.
Oh, he went to Berkeley School of Music, right?
Sorry.
Berkeley School of Music. That's what
Berkeley.
I mean, I don't know.
Berkeley.
Yeah,
College
I knew it was that
music.
prestigious. Yeah.
And
so, what made you decide to go that route instead of, pursuing it with, going the route that you were? I mean, you were experiencing success fairly early, right? I would think so as a musician. What made you make that decision to actually attend school?
Well, let me tell you one thing about Lavert. I was playing in the Holodome in Shreveport, Louisiana, and
we have a little bit of audio lag happening at the moment.
At the end of the gig, everybody would go out to after parties and whatnot, mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I met my wife there. And the funny story about that is 1986. I went into ordered some food at a restaurant I'd never been at, just out of boredom. At about 10 o'clock. I showed up at 4 in the morning to pick it up, and she was the checkout girl at the diner.
Oh,
the
wow.
Next day, Mike Ferguson, the bass player, his little brother Scott Ferguson, was another monster drummer too that went to Shaker. I think he was a year 83 graduate. Scott was. But Mike, when I introduced Penny to the band, Mike Ferguson said, whatever you do, don't crush that child with the name of Penny Denny. So she's got to be great, but it's that Penny Denny story that everybody gets a kick out of.
Okay, I have to ask Mike about that.
But yeah, But true story.
I wish you met at Denny's. That would have made it,
how that extra. That's actually where I made my first attempt at the order, but they were closed of all places. But I went to Berkeley College of Music, and I made that decision. It was on a downtime between traveling with the band. And my father said, I got an opportunity for you to go to college. You got to take it now. He says, you do what you want. But if you want to be a musician, you have to be an expert at your craft.
Right.
And this is an opportunity to take 3-4 years out of your life and simply focus on your ability, the growth of your ability, and reach some new goals other than being a player in a band. And that resonated with me. So, this will open doors down the road, even though I'm really
right.
a wonderful situation.
Well,
so
let me ask you.
I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I went to. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? Are any of your family members musicians?
But they are all artists. My little brother excelled in art, clay, oil painting. He taught it for decades in St. Louis. My older sister and Andrew Denney, he went to Shaker as well. He was behind us. My sister went the academic route and just loved writing, reading, teaching. She married a professor, and they were my son is a brilliant artist, a brilliant musician, a wonderful athlete, and he's got his master's degree as a scientist.
Oh,
And
right on.
So he got the whole gamut.
Right.
I mean, everything from.
Yeah.
I mean, he just blows my mind what he's accomplished, far more than what I ever did in my life. And the tricky thing about Berkeley was I walked in there with kind of some credentials and background of playing with some with reverb. I carried a lot of identity with me. So when I sunk in, they dropped Casanova, which shot to number 1. And the guy who replaced me in reverb ended up being a graduate from Berkeley College of Music. So
wow. Okay.
my first, so my professors in that first 2 semesters, when I would open up about what I've done in the past, they were like, "What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing?" Yeah. So that was like, trying to deal with that mental trauma of like, man. So I just buried myself in piano halls there. Chris Horvath attended there. Dave,
I remember Chris Horvath.
Yes. Yeah. A few others. Dave Cowan attended there.
Okay.
I was, and it was like running with a whole nother kind of pedigree of musicians. I don't want to get it wrong, but there was some John Mayer. There were some spectacular musicians wandering these halls.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, just that you get to play. And I never thought of myself as a good player at all. I worked hard at it to just be mediocre, but there was just gifted students here.
Well,
and so I sunk myself into synthesis. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. No, I was just going to say real quick. That you're humble, and that's great. That's like this quote that I think it was attributed to Duke Ellington. Somebody asked him, "Hey, what's your favorite song?" And he was like, "Oh, I haven't written it yet." So that type of humbleness, humility to your craft, speaks a lot. So
I pride myself on humility.
So what did you take most out of
that?
So
I got through that. I studied synthesizers and programming.
Okay.
The Berkeley experience?
Yeah, like what did you had the experience,
you
go from garage band, you go to you go to R&B, on stage, touring, recording. Now you're at Berkeley and you're wondering, wow, my former band just went #1 in the nation. And you're at Berkeley. So what are you taking from this experience? What broadened your talents? What did you put in your toolbox from Berkeley?
Well, that's when at Berkeley is really when I started getting my studio experience, unbeknownst to me, record production experience. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but the understanding of electronics, the different components in a recording studio, how the etiquette that goes on when you're dealing as part of a member of a team, right, where my place was. So it pretty much that was be quiet, show up, do your job, and be quiet. And then the last one to leave, first one to show up, be quiet, do your job, and be prepared. So I came out of Berkeley with that. I saw myself going back to being a straight touring musician, but muscled up big time. And so I had 2 offers go on tour while in my last few months of Berkeley. So it's like I'm back on the road. Fortunately, they both fell through. One was back with Levert on their Rope-A-Dope record. The second one was with 9 Inch Nails on their Big Hate Machine record.
Wow. Huge records.
The first level.
You know,
huge.
You're like this dude that joined the Army years back, and he was in Nirvana. He paid for their first album, and he was in Soundgarden. I think he was a bass player. And he left the band, joined the Army, and eventually became a special forces soldier. And this is like in the mid 2000s. And so to me, this is what reminds me of this, is like you were this dude with these major credits, you know, and then, you know, stepping back into the real world, and, you know, it's just like this cognitive dissonance, you know. It made me think of that guy, because like his drill sergeants were like, wait a minute, were you that dude in the, you know? And he was just like, yeah. And they were, you know, same thing, like, yo, what the fuck you doing here, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
let me ask you this. I'll bring this up. You know, so, you know, early on as a teenager, you went away to address, you know, addiction problems or what have you, and then you go on the road, and, you know, I'm sure that's prevalent there because that's the industry and that's the way rock and roll is. Did you have any apprehension? Was that an apprehension from going back onto the road and not, you know, maybe you had was that in the back of your mind, you know, if there would be some sort of sirens, if you will, pulling you back, maybe taking you backwards into that? Or did that cross your mind? Were you past that at that point? Were you worried? Was that a concern?
No, I had, it wasn't, I was, at that point, I was in the habit of not chasing that shit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I had adjusted my how I lived to a point where I was secure in, I'm not going back to that. And it was a one day at a time situation.
I see.
So your band members respected that, and they understood that, and, you know, they allowed you that space.
I just don't think they fucking cared. It was, you know,
right.
I just didn't talk or do
drugs. They want to do themselves. Yeah.
No big whoop, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just kind of kept quiet about it. I had a close friend at that time. His name was Bobby Nolan, who was a shaker cat who I brought in. I was part of that.
Bobby Nolan, right? Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played Shaker Boys League. I think he was like, he had long hair. He was a pitcher.
Yeah, I know Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby.
Shout out to Bobby Nolan.
Bobby Nolan was, Bobby had him. What I remember about him, he was somebody I'd play spades with, poker, quarter poker with, you know, friends from Shaker, Tom Wigglesworth, and Alec Malco.
Yes, Alec Malco.
Just, you know, goofball friends in high school that we would just chill with. Bobby was one of those. I was like, I'm gonna get you on board with this outfit. So I had somebody there that was understood, and I understood with him what we were recovering, so to speak. So it didn't tug at me like I'm gonna make a big mistake out here, because I know if I did, everything that I had worked for or that I've been blessed with would disappear pretty quick, and I'd be back to that. Oh, I'm high. Woohoo! Great job. Just fucking blew up your whole life. So I stayed away from it. You know?
Good. It's good that he had your back.
But yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah. So that was my support system. But back to your question about Levert, they got, well, Trent had called me up and we spoke a few times because Lee Mars, another shaker, was playing with 9 Inch Nails at that time. And he was trying to make a transition out of that. Trent, we would bump into each other in Coventry or down in the flat. So, and I'd see him in Boston too. He would come by. I watch him by the apartment. I lived on Boylston Street. I'd bump into Trent. And we didn't hear me say, I'm not. They were playing down the block, so he'd bring us over. I'd see the lead there, I'd see the band, and get blown away again. But having these experiences of being exposed to our locals, and just being, whether it was Mike Chapman, Trent, or Matt Kirsch, it all this kind of reoccurring this reoccurring experience of inspiration. That just kept me wanting to dive deeper in the right place. But it was a kind of, anyhow, I think you need this keyboard and emulator.
Wow.
I said, okay.
So we had this mini Minneapolis
tour that I'm on. I called up Gerald.
Go ahead, Eric.
There's
a lag.
It's really.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, it's almost like it's a couple second delay. We might have to adjust the flange or the knobs. Maybe the EQ. I don't know. You're the engineer.
So I'm looking at this as like a little Minneapolis. We have cultural exchange, going back and forth from different sides of Shaker, for sure. That's great. I mean, I'm sure you have friends in the business from other parts of, aside from Shaker. Is this seem to be a very unique experience compared to other experiences that other people have had? I mean, it amazes me. Have you thought about that as being, wow, look at this diverse talent that I was brought up with and grew with?
Yeah, I reflect now on all of these kind of full circle experiences and watching the friends in our graduating class just reach unbelievable heights of success. It blows me away. I think every experience is unique and should be. That there's not really a cookie cutting thing. I think it's just you end up there. I always talk about it getting caught in an orbit of success, of different pockets of planets and groups that you just kind of, you'll circle, you get real close, you'll jettison out, and you'll catch another one the next day. But I think it's all based on the step that is in front of you, and having the balls to take it. Me going to Berkeley, they quit the band and seeing the band had left, smashing out number one. My instructors tell me like an asshole for being there. Jeez, and then get through that, get invited back to the band, and with 9 Inch Nails, which I was a big fan from demo stage, and then both of those for whatever reason fell through, and I'm stuck. I'm newly married. I live in Mayfield Heights. It's 1990. I got a wife. I got bills. I got a car, and I ain't got shit. So what do? I go into the studio in Cleveland, GTR Media. I'm like, man, I'm recording a record. I'm gonna let this. I'm gonna express here. So that again was another experience. They ended up hiring me based on my ability of understanding synthesizers and how to build sounds, which none of them did. They were like, oh, that's a piano patch. That was that. And I go and fiddle around real quick and turn nothing into something or something into nothing. And, get this kid in here.
Well, right on.
So for 8 months, at GTR Media, I cleaned toilets, swept floors, raked leads. They allowed me to sit and shut up in the back of all of the different studios. And that's when Mike Chapman really came to life, because he had an 8-track studio, one of 3, no, I'm sorry, a 16-track studio, one of 3 in that facility. And that's where I felt embraced by him and his knowledge. And that's when he always felt like he was my mentor, because he carried me through for years. I'd watch him work, watch him mix, I'd watch his technique, and then he eventually started sharing tidbits of how he made records. And then going through those motions and that techniques, he allowed me to be his tracking engine for his work.
Okay.
So I fell into recording engineering, and through that, gathering production skills too.
So those of you that don't know who Mike Chapman is,
that's where my whole kind of studio.
Got it. Go ahead, Eric.
Gabe.
Mike Chapman, brilliant.
For those of
Shaker grad 84.
Yeah.
Well, he was also DJing late night on WZAK as a high school student, bringing Cleveland into the hip hop scene.
Yes. Yeah.
So he was a pioneer in Cleveland hip hop. So another Shaker legend, Cleveland legend, Northeast Ohio legend. He was doing huge things still in the music industry.
Absolutely.
And in the entertainment industry, from what I understand.
Yeah. He lives out in Maryland. Mike, if you're listening, anybody knows Mike, tell him we'd like to have him on the show. Also, his sister, Kelly Chapman, we'd like to have on the show. That whole Chapman family, very talented, entrepreneurial, but reaffirming the richness, the diverse richness that was Shaker. And especially, like all the musicians we've talked about, and then even like the theater department, a lot of the people, so, something to be said about that school being rich in the arts and the, the influences.
There was one man, just a quick touch on the theater department. They always, the courage they had to go out there and do what they did, which always impressed me. There was one that resonated with me with Jimmy Moss.
Yes.
I don't think really with the theater, and just again, he seemed to be really timid, but I understood that.
Right.
I don't think it all did reach out to him. It was more of a respect thing, different kind of components of the art. That was one I didn't understand, but respected them.
Yeah. Yeah. Jimmy's on the,
we got to 1990. Yeah. God bless him.
Wow. Yeah, we want to do a roundup and have all these influential people, which will lead to more and more and more and more and more. And the idea behind this show was to sort of reconvene at the 40th anniversary of our class of '84. But it seems like we're unveiling a lot.
Flying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fuck. Wow. I still feel like a kid sometimes, but man, 40 years.
So do I, man. Like I don't know what like 57, about to be 58 in June is supposed to feel like, because what is that supposed to feel like? And I have this theory, it's prejudicial to artists, is that artists keep young. They keep young by creating. And doesn't mean like I don't know. I'm not saying that other people who are not artists don't, create or are not as young or whatever. But I really think with artists, I mean, if you're really an artist, you're constantly, your neuroplasticity is still pliable and you're still creating, you're keeping young in a way than somebody that may have not cultivated their creativity and are, resigned themselves to working a job for 20, 25 years to, whatever, there's a certain aging to that, I feel, in some cases,
Well, you're definitely never satisfied, and you can never rest on your laurels, because you're always wanting to grow and see what lies ahead and what you can
And
find
especially, yeah, exactly. And especially in particular, Jon, you being a musician and the meditative state of tones and frequencies, contributes to one's well-being, and the cultivation of those things, So
it's there's an understanding and kind of camaraderie with or a vibe that a connection that you have with other musicians. That sometimes you don't have to say anything.
Right.
It's almost like Misfit Island in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Me being out, I just retired after 45 years doing this shit, and then being acquainted to a civilian life took time.
Yeah, real talk.
Normal people. Yeah. So that made an adjustment.
Yeah. And
what a ride, man.
Tell me about it. And more chapters to go. I mean, here we are near the end almost of this podcast, but you've been winning the battle here, and how do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was just a surprise back in February. I was diagnosed with cancer in the bladder. I go for my first surgery next week. And,
okay, we're gonna keep you in meditations. Yeah.
So every day since then, there's I could feel my body reacting or changing. The spirits are up. I'm not scared at all.
Yeah.
At all. Prayers. Keep sicknesses come down. The donations, prayer answered as well, because these bills are astronomical.
Yeah, man. Don't get me started on that, on the U.S. healthcare system.
But I'm in the Lord's hands. That's what keeps all the the dark away from me. I'm glad I got up today. God bless for sure. Amen.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. Indeed. It's very poignant right now. Man.
Well, there's strength in community, and we're here for you and here for everyone else, especially within our community, and want to build on that and continue to talk and commemorate and celebrate. And blessed to have you here with us and talk to us about your journey and being an artist. Man. And us being artists, we know how brave that journey is of itself. So furthering on in your journey, we know that you have the tools and the goods to go further in this journey, this bigger challenge, if you will.
Yeah, man.
On all of it.
It's just, first, this podcast journey that Eric and I have, taken on and stuff. And it's really enriching. And I got to say, I knew, we were acquainted in high school, but it wasn't like we hung out or anything, but I knew you were a musician and you worked in studios and stuff. And so, it really means a lot to here we are, connecting years later with nuance, and in a lot of ways free of the caste system sometimes that can be high school, which is, the precursor to jumping in the world. And it depends on how people navigate that, and it's about, life is about experiences and, experiences.
This whole thing feels like,
God bless you both, man.
Thanks, man. Back at you.
Yeah. This whole thing feels like we just went on a hike and we're reconvening at base camp.
That's a good one.
And we're comparing notes. because my high school experience sucked.
40 years later, right?
Right.
Yeah. And this is very cathartic. I had no reason to go back to a 40th high school reunion. I've been to none of them. But it's creating a different community for me. And getting to know you, I was an admirer from afar. But just getting to reconnect or get to know people, after our trials and tribulations and our experiences, and coming back and comparing notes and just understanding where we came from, the genesis of all this and what an experiment this was. And in listening to your story, we're hearing how that worked, how the basis of all of that stuff that happened in the 60s fed your career, fed your growth. And we wouldn't be talking about this if that hadn't happened. I mean, look who you were mentored to. You're mentored with a Black man named Michael Chapman, on the other side of the furthest side of Shaker Heights. You're over in the Byron area. We're in the Lomond area next to Lee Road. How beautiful is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And just, again, just the musical exposure and experiences, and it's like world crossing, and I think that's something that is one of the greatest benefits if one was receptive to that. Well, experiencing it, it's the nuances of the world and having a reference point when you're out in the world, and and even perspective, when this term DEI, the term DEI, for example, and all the negative connotations put to it and stuff like that. I mean, that's crucial for a society, in everything, the arts, everything. You have to have diversity, and the fact that we came from that place, it resonates every day, So, I mean, that's all I can say at the moment. But grateful.
And you stole my elementary school girlfriend, who I won't mention, but
See, that'll be for. John, we're definitely gonna have you on some other shows, because one of the things we want to do. I mean, Eric hasn't responded to it yet, but I thought of this yesterday. We have like Shaker After Hours, and it's like late night on a weekend. We open up the streamline. Folks come on and chop it up, within proper, whatever. But just let people let the hair hang down.
You got to keep in line. We're all a bunch of 60-year-old men.
Yeah, and get the women involved in here too. That's another thing too. We need the ladies up in this podcast, and if you're listening, and you want to tell your Shaker story, come on the show, man. This is not just a bro fest, okay? Or dude thing right here, So, want everybody up in here. We're bearing witness, and we're bearing witness. So, before we go, real quick, I want to tease our next show. Will be tomorrow. It's what I called afternoon tea at 3:30 with Tony Peck, and afternoon tea with Tony, and talk about Amy Joy Donuts, and amongst other things. What's really unique, real quick, about Tony, he's a Steelers fan, and being a Steelers fan in Northeast Ohio, amongst the sea of orange and brown, it takes a special type of character. So, so check us out tomorrow. This episode, it's been streaming live. Thank you for whoever's been watching.
Look at all the Facebook people that are tuned into Facebook because of you, John. We've never had this before. Look at this. The board is lighting up. So we need more of you, John. We need more of you.
What?
Yeah, we're bringing you back on for the music thing. We got to plan that out because we want to have Haven, Attic. Let's see who else from the other grades. We got Rob Barrett, we got Greg Young, we got Ben London, who was like, he's been out there in the grunge scene all these years.
Where's Kerwin Kane?
Kerwin Kane, yes. John
Where's
Meadows.
Quinn Rubin?
Yes.
A lot of people in the entertainment. David Embry was a manager for Hurricane, the comedian.
Oh,
so
wow.
There's tons of experience and stories to be shared within the Shaker galaxy, if you will.
Yeah, man. Well, John, lastly, you're coming to the reunion?
It really is amazing. I don't know if I'm going to be well enough to travel.
Okay.
It's kind of a step-by-step process. It's
understood. But we're gonna broadcast. We're gonna broadcast from there. We got to figure out the logistics, but we plan to. So I'll make sure you get a thread, and if you're up for it, you tune in. Shout out some people and stuff like that. So, yeah, man. Eric, any last things as we sign off?
I'm glad I was better this time, man. I was a fanboy when I was talking to you on the phone. I couldn't get stuff out. You've influenced us more than anybody. I mean, geez.
And
shaking my head that we got you. I'm so glad that we got you on and got you to share your stories and your experience. And we just like to share with all the people that are out there, what influence you had on us and how proud we are of you and your journey.
And also, too, most importantly, as well, is, we ask everybody, and you've already discussed this, it's just the significance of being from Shaker, and I think, for those who are aware, or awake, it says a lot, All right. Well, John, it's a pleasure. And I will send you a link so you have a copy of this. And StreamYard does localization. So I think whatever lag we were all experiencing from the internet, it will not be that way locally for you when you download it. I think at least that's the theory I read.
Please.
Yeah, but no fault. It's the internet. It's the internet. Any given day.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad we were able to connect here. Yeah. All right, man. Much love to you, man. That's real.
I appreciate you.
Have a blessed day, and we'll catch up soon.
Stay strong, man.
And that is another episode of the Shaker Heights.
Thank you, bro.
Experiences may vary. I'm your co-host, Gabe Tolliver.
Eric Green.
And this was Jon Denney. Until next time, y'all have a blessed day.